I joked about proposing to the alien queen, and she said yes, without hesitation, HFY Sci-Fi store. The human delegation arrived on the alien world with very low expectations. No one believed this visit would change anything. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy, still treated like children who had wandered into a room full of giants. Their ships were smaller. Their weapons were simpler. Their voices carried little weight. The main human among them was a quiet man chosen not for strength or fame, but for calm thinking. He stood inside the grand hall of the alien capital, surrounded by towering figures with glowing eyes and heavy armor grown from living metal. The floor beneath him was smooth and warm, pulsing softly like a living thing. High above, light flowed through the ceiling like slow-moving water. This was the first time a human had been invited this close to the heart of an alien empire. The alien queen sat upon a raised platform at the center of the hall. She was tall even by alien standards, her form graceful and sharp at the same time. Her skin shimmered with deep colors that changed with her mood. Her eyes were focused, ancient, and heavy with authority. Every movement she made carried meaning. Around her stood advisors, guards, and nobles, all watching the small human with quiet judgment. The human stood straight, hands at his sides. He knew fear would only make things worse. He had trained himself to breathe slowly, to keep his voice steady. Still, his heart beat fast. The queen spoke, and her voice echoed through the hall without effort. "You are smaller than expected," she said, not as an insult but as a simple observation. The human nodded. "Yes, your majesty, humans are not large." A few soft sounds rippled through the alien crowd. Some found this amusing. "You have crossed great distance to stand here," the queen continued. "Why?" The human answered honestly. "To speak, to listen, to learn how we may exist without fear." The queen studied him for a long moment. Silence pressed down on the hall. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Fear is the natural state of the weak," she said. "Why should the galaxy not fear you instead?" The question was dangerous. The human chose his words carefully. "We are not strong like many others," he said, "but we endure, we adapt, we try again even when we fail." More murmurs spread among the aliens. Some looked curious, others looked bored. The queen tilted her head. "You speak of trying, of endurance. These are slow things." "Yes," the human replied, "but slow does not mean useless." The queen did not answer right away. Instead, she raised one long finger and the hall shifted. Light formed images in the air. Scenes of human history appeared. Wars, cities burning, humans fighting each other. "You speak of peace," the queen said, "yet your kind harms itself." The human looked at the images and felt the familiar weight of shame. "We do," he said, "and we regret it, but we also learn from it, slowly." The images changed. Humans rebuilding, helping each other, standing together against storms, disease, and darkness. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "You value connection." "Yes," the human said, "even when it hurts." The queen leaned back, curious. Time passed. Questions continued, about human customs, about emotions, about humor. The human answered as simply as he could. He did not exaggerate. He did not hide weakness. At last the queen asked, "Explain this thing you call joking." The human hesitated, then smiled faintly. "It is when we say something not fully serious to ease tension or share trust." "Trust," the queen repeated. "Explain further." The human took a breath. "Sometimes we joke about serious things to show that we are not afraid of speaking openly." The queen's gaze sharpened. "Give an example." The human's mind raced. He needed something harmless, something clearly not meant to be taken seriously. He glanced around the hall at the vast power surrounding him. He felt very small. "In human culture," he said carefully, "one way to show deep respect is through a proposal of union, marriage." A few aliens shifted. This was unexpected. The queen raised an eyebrow. "Union between rulers." "Sometimes," the human said, "but often it is symbolic. A joke can be made about it in relaxed conversation." The queen leaned forward again. "You would joke about proposing to a ruler." The human gave a small, nervous smile. "Only if the ruler was very powerful and very confident." A few aliens made sharp sounds. Some laughed, others looked offended. The queen stared at him. "And would you propose to me, human, as a joke?" The hall went silent. The human felt sweat form on his back. This had gone too far, but backing down suddenly might be worse. He forced himself to speak lightly. "If it brought peace and friendship," he said, "then yes, I suppose I would." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the queen stood. The sound of her rising echoed like thunder. Every alien in the hall lowered their head instantly. The human froze, unsure if he should kneel or run. The queen stepped down from her platform and walked toward him. Each step was slow and deliberate. Her eyes never left his face. "I accept," she said. The words struck the hall like a shockwave. The human's smile vanished. "Your Majesty," he began, panic creeping into his voice, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding." "I do not misunderstand," the queen said calmly. "You offered union." I accepted without hesitation. Around them, chaos stirred. Advisors whispered urgently. Guards tightened their grip on weapons. Some nobles looked furious, others looked afraid. The human swallowed. It was meant as humor, a joke, not a binding offer. The queen stopped directly in front of him. She looked down at him, towering and unreadable. "In my people's law," she said, "an offer made before witnesses is truth, especially when made without fear." The human's heart sank. "I did feel fear," he said quietly. The queen's eyes softened just slightly. "Yet you spoke anyway." The hall buzzed with rising tension. One of the queen's advisors stepped forward. "This is unacceptable. The human mocks our traditions." Another replied, "Or perhaps fate speaks through unlikely mouths." The queen raised her hand and silence fell again. "The human will not be harmed," she declared. "He will be taken to the inner city." The human blinked. "Am I a guest," he asked, "or a prisoner?" The queen considered him. "That depends on what you choose to be." Guards approached, but their weapons remained lowered. The human allowed himself to be guided forward, his mind spinning. He looked back once at the other humans watching from the edge of the hall. Their faces were pale with shock. As he was led away, the queen spoke once more, her voice carrying through the hall. "Prepare the city," she said. "The galaxy watches now." The great doors closed behind the human with a deep, final sound. And far above the planet, human ships received fragmented signals filled with alarm, confusion, and one impossible message. The joke had been heard, and it had been answered. The human walked through the inner city with wide eyes. Buildings rose higher than anything he had seen, and they shimmered as if alive. The streets were quiet, almost too quiet, except for occasional hums from the structures themselves. He could feel power in the air, like the city was aware of him. The guards who led him spoke little. Their expressions were neutral, but their eyes followed every movement. The human understood that one wrong step could change everything. Yet he forced himself to remain calm. Fear would make him look weak, and in this city weakness was dangerous. Finally, they arrived at a large palace. Its walls glowed softly with an inner light. The doors opened before them, almost as if they recognized the human. Inside, the queen waited, seated on a throne that seemed carved from living crystal. Her expression was unreadable. She studied him as if trying to measure the weight of his soul. "Sit," she said simply. The human obeyed, lowering himself to the floor in a gesture of respect. He could see that the palace was filled with observers. Some were alien nobles. Others were advisors who rarely spoke but whose eyes could cut like blades. They had gathered to witness this proposal and the human's fate. "You are far from your world," the queen said, "and far from your people, yet you laughed and you spoke boldly. Tell me, human, why should I not see your kind as weak and foolish?" The human chose his words carefully. "Your Majesty, humans are not strong like many in this galaxy. But we do not hide our feelings and we do not give up. We try. We endure. Sometimes that is stronger than any weapon. The queen did not respond immediately. Instead, she leaned forward, observing him like one studies a fragile but unusual flower. A few advisors whispered to each other, but the human could not hear the words. He only felt their judgment, heavy and sharp. Then, unexpectedly, the queen smiled, a small, slow movement that changed everything. "You are curious," she said. "You may survive this trial." The human's pulse quickened. "Trial?" he asked. "Yes," the queen replied. "In my world, a proposal of union is not complete until the offer survives proof. Proof is not physical. It tests mind, heart, and courage. You will face it, survive, and your place is known. Fail and—" Her voice dropped, but her meaning was clear. Death, or worse. The human swallowed hard. The thought of failing terrified him, yet a strange sense of determination rose within him. He had never thought of himself as brave. But now he understood that humans could be underestimated, and that might be their greatest strength. As he was led to the trial chamber, he noticed that the city itself seemed alive. Light shifted as he walked. Shadows moved independently of their sources. The walls whispered faintly as though watching him. The alien guards did not notice, or perhaps they did not care, but the human felt it deeply. The city would judge him as much as the queen would. Inside the chamber, the trial began. It was not a hall of combat, but a room of memory. Strange devices hovered in the air, projecting visions into his mind. They showed his past, moments of fear, doubt, and loss. They demanded that he face every mistake, every failure, every regret. The human felt the weight of his own life pressing on him. He wanted to turn away, but he could not. He had to endure. Then the devices showed humanity itself. Cities burned and rebuilt. Humans fought each other and survived plagues. They struggled with poverty, hunger, and injustice. Yet they also built hospitals, schools, and homes. They saved lives even when the cost was great. They laughed in the face of danger. They hoped when hope seemed impossible. The human spoke to the visions. He explained not just his life, but the lives of all humans. He spoke of mistakes and triumphs. He admitted fear, failure, and regret. And he spoke of courage, laughter, and love, the things that made humans endure against impossible odds. The chamber was silent when he finished. The visions disappeared. The observers, including the queen, watched him carefully. Some leaned forward, trying to detect a lie. Some looked skeptical. Some, quietly, began to understand. "You have survived the trial," the queen said at last. Her voice carried both approval and curiosity. "You speak truth. You show courage. You are unusual." The human exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I did what I could." "Do you know what you have done?" she asked. "Your people will never be the same in this galaxy. Many will fear you. Many will laugh at you, but none will ignore you." Before he could answer, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the chamber. The queen's expression hardened. "You see," she said to him. "Even now, others do not accept you. You are in danger, human, and the city may be attacked at any moment." The human's mind raced. He had not expected this. He had not even considered that his survival in the trial could provoke conflict. Yet the truth was clear. The galaxy would not ignore humans any longer. They had made their mark simply by being honest and courageous when all others expected fear. The queen rose. "You will not be alone. Follow me." The human obeyed, running through hidden corridors of the palace, the walls alive with light and whispering. Outside, the city was alert. Shadows moved, shapes shifting in the alien streets. Guards lined the paths, their weapons ready. Citizens peeked from windows and alleys, some curious, some fearful. The queen and the human reached the central plaza just in time to see ships descending from the sky. Dark and strange vessels, unlike anything he had ever seen. The alien city's defense forces moved instantly, but even he could feel the danger. This was no small attack. This was a challenge to everything the queen had built, and everything he had just begun to understand. The Queen turned to him. "You see now," she said, "why humor, courage, and honesty matter. Even in a galaxy that underestimates you, they can save you." The human nodded, gripping his hands tightly. Fear and adrenaline raced through him, but he could feel something else: determination. He would not run. He could not fail. Humans were not supposed to be strong, but perhaps the galaxy had not seen the full measure of what they could do. The first ships fired, and the sky lit with energy. The battle had begun, and the human realized that the joke he had made, careless and foolish, had already started to reshape history. The Queen's voice cut through the chaos. "Do not falter. Survive. And perhaps one day the galaxy will remember this moment." The human swallowed hard and stepped forward. The trial was over, but the real test, the one that would determine the place of humans in the galaxy, was just beginning. The city shook as the first attack struck. And somewhere deep inside, the human felt the strange thrill of standing on the edge of the impossible. The city shook violently as the first attack hit. Strange, dark ships descended like shadows over the glowing streets. The human felt the tremor under his feet and instinctively ducked as energy beams tore through walls and plazas. Citizens screamed and scattered, running for safety. The alien guards moved quickly, forming defensive lines, but even their immense power seemed barely enough to hold the attackers back. The Queen's voice rang above the chaos. "Stay close. Your survival depends on understanding, not just fear." The human hesitated only a moment before following. He had faced the trial, endured visions, and spoken truth to the Queen. Yet nothing in that experience prepared him for this. The trial had tested honesty and courage in words. This battle tested both in action. A blast tore through the street near them, and the human instinctively dove behind a glowing pillar. Sparks scattered, and a section of the wall cracked. He felt the fear in his chest, but this time he did not let it freeze him. He looked at the Queen. She was calm, precise, moving as if the attack was merely a challenge to her authority, but her eyes held intensity. She was ready to fight, and she expected him to be ready as well. The human noticed that many civilians were trapped in the streets. Some were aliens, some were small humanoid traders who had been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. He could have stayed behind, letting the guards protect them, but something inside him urged forward. Humans did not wait while others suffered. He shouted to the nearest group of frightened civilians, "Follow me, stay low, and do not stop running." Many looked at him with disbelief. One small trader, trembling, asked, "You're just one human, how can you lead us?" He smiled, though his lips were tight with fear. "Humans survive by trying. Follow me and try." The civilians hesitated only a heartbeat, then ran after him. The human led them through narrow alleys and corridors that twisted like living veins. The city itself seemed to help, its lights shifting to reveal hidden passages. Every step he took, he reminded himself that humor, honesty, and courage were his tools, tools the aliens might not even understand. Meanwhile, the Queen and her generals fought near the city center. Beams and blasts collided with a sound like thunder. Her long staff glowed with strange energy, cutting through enemy ships and creating shockwaves. The human caught glimpses of her as he led the civilians. She moved with purpose and precision, her presence giving hope to those around her. But he noticed worry in her eyes, a rare sign. The attackers were stronger than even she had expected. As he turned a corner, he saw one of the dark ships hovering directly above a crowded plaza. Energy cannons aimed at hundreds of innocent civilians. Without thinking, he sprinted toward a control panel embedded in the wall. He had no knowledge of how it worked, only a simple understanding. Humans improvise. He pulled levers, pressed buttons, and shouted to the civilians to duck. A beam fired, and by pure luck, it hit the ship's engine, causing it to wobble and crash into a nearby tower. The civilians cheered. The human felt a rush of hope, but it was short-lived. A second ship descended faster than the first. He realized that luck alone could not save them. He needed strategy. He looked around for tools, weapons, or positions to control the battle. He spotted a group of alien defenders struggling against a small squad of attackers. He ran toward them. "Cover me," he shouted. "I have an idea." The defenders glanced at him, confused. "You're human," one said. "You cannot fight like us." The human ignored him. Humans did not fight like others, they fought differently. He grabbed a device on the ground, a simple energy disruptor the aliens had left unattended, and activated it. A wave of interference spread across the battlefield, short-circuiting enemy weapons for a few precious seconds. In that moment, the defenders regrouped, and the humans and aliens moved together to drive the attackers back. The human barely noticed the queen rushing toward him. She landed beside him with grace, her staff glowing fiercely. "You interfere recklessly," she said, though her eyes betrayed respect. "But you are alive, and that matters." "I'm trying to help," he replied, breathing heavily. "Humans act by trying, that's all we have." The queen's eyes softened again. "Then you understand something many of my people do not. Courage is not in power, it is in persistence." The battle raged on. The human and the queen moved through the city, side by side. Each time he helped a group of civilians escape, she took down a portion of the attacking forces. He realized that humans could be underestimated, but their value lay in unpredictability, in thinking differently, and in taking risks that no one else would. A sudden explosion threw him against a wall. Dazed, he looked up to see the queen pinned under debris from a collapsing structure. Energy blasts from the attackers were closing in. He froze for a heartbeat. If he failed, the queen could die, and with her, his fragile alliance. He leapt forward, throwing himself against the rubble. He lifted, shoved, and pulled, feeling muscles strain beyond what he thought possible. The queen rolled free just as another blast struck the ground where she had been. She looked at him with surprise and something almost like pride. "You risked your life for me," she said, breathing heavily. "Humans do not leave others behind," he replied simply. A loud crash interrupted their exchange. A massive ship had broken through the outer defenses and was heading toward the palace. The queen and her generals quickly formed a defensive line, but the human had another idea. "We need to lure it," he shouted. "Use the side channels, lead it into the narrow streets." The queen raised an eyebrow. "Do you understand our city well enough for that?" "Not perfectly," he said, "but humans think in chaos. We use it." Together, they ran through the twisting city streets, the human shouting directions and the queen commanding her forces to follow. The massive ship followed, unable to maneuver through the tight alleys. Using the city's living structures, the human directed energy beams from walls to weaken the ship, while the queen's staff struck precise points. The ship crashed spectacularly into a plaza far from civilians. For a brief moment, the city was silent. The human gasped for air, his body trembling from exhaustion. He looked at the queen, who surveyed the battlefield. She nodded slowly. "You have survived more than the trial," she said. "You have proven that humans may be small, but their spirit is not. That is what many in this galaxy do not understand." The human shook his head in disbelief. "It was chaos," he said. "I just acted." "And that is the point," she replied. "Others plan, you act. That makes all the difference." From the high towers of the city, scouts reported more ships on the horizon. The human realized that this attack was only the beginning. The galaxy would not ignore humans now. The queen had already seen their value, but others would test it in harsher ways. He felt a strange pride. They had survived, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, humor, and quick thinking, the very things humans were often dismissed for. The queen looked at him seriously. "You will need to survive more than this. And when the time comes, your decisions may not just save yourself, but all of humanity." The human swallowed, understanding fully for the first time the weight of what had begun with a simple joke. He had laughed, had made a statement he thought harmless, and it had led him to stand beside one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy in the middle of war. The sun, or what passed for sun in this alien world, was rising behind the city towers. Smoke, sparks, and the sound of distant battle filled the air. The human felt fear and determination together, a strange mix that made him feel more alive than ever. And far above the city, new signals appeared in the sky. Other worlds had noticed the fight. Other races were watching, and the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. The Queen turned to him once more. "Come," she said, "we prepare for what comes next. The galaxy may try to destroy you, or it may try to learn from you. Either way, you must endure." The human nodded, gripping his hands tightly. Humans endured. That was all he knew. And now it was all the galaxy would know too. The city shook again with distant explosions, but the human walked beside the Queen, ready to face whatever came next. He had survived the trial, fought in battle, and begun to change the perception of humanity in a single day. And still, the real test, the one that would decide humanity's place in the stars, had not yet begun. The human ran through the inner streets of the alien city, flanked by the Queen and a small group of defenders. Smoke rose from shattered towers, and fires cast orange light across the streets. Civilians scrambled for safety, carrying children and small belongings. The human noticed the terror in their eyes, but he also saw something else: hope. They had survived the first wave, and now he would show them that humans could act when others faltered. The Queen glanced at him. "The enemy is stronger than we expected. Many of my generals would hesitate now." "I don't hesitate," he said, "because hesitation kills people." She raised an eyebrow. "Curious. Courage and thought together make you effective. I have never seen a human act this way." Before he could respond, the ground shook violently. Another group of enemy ships descended, faster and larger than the previous ones. Their weapons fired without warning, blasting through streets and knocking debris into the air. The Queen's staff glowed brightly, deflecting some attacks, but she could not protect everyone. The human realized the city's defenses would be overwhelmed unless he acted. He spotted a narrow alley leading to the central plaza where the enemy was concentrating. Civilians were trapped between incoming fire and the main streets. Without thinking, he ran toward them, waving the frightened people to follow. "Stay low, move quickly." A small child stumbled and he grabbed her hand, pulling her up. Behind him, an alien defender shouted, "You are risking your life for civilians. You are just one human." He looked back, panting. "Humans survive by trying. That is enough." The civilians followed him, ducking behind walls and discarded debris. He led them through winding paths, confusing the attackers and giving them moments of safety. Each time he thought of giving up, he reminded himself of the trial. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. Meanwhile, the Queen fought in the city's central plaza. Her staff struck with precision, creating shockwaves that threw enemy soldiers and machines off balance. Energy arcs flowed around her like liquid, cutting through ships and weapons. Yet even she was strained. Her generals were exhausted. The human realized that his role was not just to survive, but to act where others could not. He ran toward a group of alien defenders pinned under heavy fire. "Use the buildings," he shouted. "The streets are traps. Lead the enemy into narrow paths." One general hesitated. He is human. He cannot understand the city fully. The human moved quickly. "Humans think differently. Follow me if you want to survive." The defenders looked at each other, uncertain, but followed his lead. Using small twists in the streets and debris as cover, the human directed them to flank the enemy. Beams ricocheted unpredictably. Ships were forced to adjust or crash. Civilians scattered safely behind barricades. The Queen noticed his efforts and came to his side. "You interfere recklessly," she said, though her eyes betrayed a strange respect. "But it works." "I act," he replied simply. "Humans do not wait for perfection. A massive enemy ship hovered over a crowded square, its weapons ready to fire. Civilians screamed. The human did not hesitate. He sprinted toward an energy control panel near the plaza. The device was alien, complex, and clearly not meant for him. But he knew enough. Humans improvise. He pulled levers, pressed buttons, and activated energy fields. Sparks flew and the ship rocked as its weapons misfired. The Queen shouted over the chaos. "How did you do that?" "Luck," he admitted. "And humans try things others would never attempt." The ship crashed into a nearby tower, creating a cloud of smoke and fire. Civilians cheered, but there was no time to celebrate. More enemy ships were approaching, larger and faster than before. The Queen turned to him. "We cannot survive if we fight like this. We must use strategy, not just force." The human's mind raced. He remembered how humans fought wars on Earth, not with the strongest armies always winning, but with clever tactics, improvisation, and unexpected moves. "We lure them," he said. "Lead them into narrow streets. Use the buildings to slow them. Then hit them with everything we have." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You understand my city well enough to do this." "Not perfectly," he admitted. "But humans think in chaos. We use it." Together, they ran through the twisting streets, the human giving instructions and the Queen commanding her forces. Enemy ships followed, unable to maneuver through the tight alleys. He directed energy beams from walls to weaken the ships while the Queen's staff struck precise points. One by one, the ships fell or crashed. A sudden explosion threw him against a wall. Dazed, he looked up to see the Queen pinned under debris from a collapsing structure. Energy blasts from enemy ships were closing in. He froze for a heartbeat. If he failed, she could die, and with her, the fragile alliance between humans and her people. He leapt forward, throwing himself against the rubble. He lifted, shoved, and pulled, muscles straining beyond his thought possible. The Queen rolled free just as another blast struck the ground where she had been. She looked at him with surprise and something like pride. "You risked your life for me," she said, breathing heavily. "Humans do not leave others behind," he replied simply. The Queen nodded, her expression serious. "Then you understand something many of my people do not. Courage is not in power, it is in persistence." They continued their advance, leading civilians, dodging enemy fire, and directing the defenders. Each time they cleared a street or saved a group of people, the human felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had not just survived the trial, he was proving the value of humans in real time, in ways words alone could not show. Finally, they reached the city's central defense hub. From there, they could see the main enemy fleet approaching. Hundreds of ships, dark and sleek, were moving with terrifying speed. The Queen turned to him. "The final wave is coming. This is the moment humans are often underestimated. What will you do?" He swallowed hard. "We fight smart," he said. "Not just with strength, but with strategy and courage. Humans do what others will not." The Queen's eyes glimmered. "Then show me." He ran to the control panels, directing energy flows through the city's living structures. He coordinated defenders, moved civilians, and created traps for the enemy ships. The Queen struck from the front lines, cutting paths for them to escape and destroying ships that got too close. Together, they were a force no one expected. The enemy ships began to falter. One by one, they crashed into buildings, misfired, or were destroyed by the city's defenses enhanced by the humans' quick thinking. Civilians were safe. The Queen's forces were strong but weary. The human realized that his actions had turned the tide, not through raw power, but through courage, humor, and the unpredictability that made humans difficult to fight. At last, the skies cleared. Smoke rose from destroyed enemy ships, but the city stood. Civilians cheered. The human collapsed to the ground, exhausted, while the Queen came to his side. "You have done more than survive," she said quietly. "You have shown that humans are not weak, as many in the galaxy believed. They are extraordinary." The human shook his head in disbelief. I was just trying to help. I did not plan to be extraordinary. And that is the point, she replied. You act when others hesitate. You show courage when fear is everywhere. That is what makes humans dangerous and respected. The city was quiet now, but the human knew this was only the beginning. The enemy had retreated, but they would return. The galaxy would take notice of humans. The Queen had already seen their value, but others would test it in harsher ways. He felt a strange pride. They had survived, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, quick thinking, and persistence, the very things humans were often dismissed for. The Queen looked at him seriously. You will need to survive more than this. And when the time comes, your decisions may not just save yourself, but all of humanity. The human swallowed, understanding fully for the first time the weight of what had begun with a simple joke. He had laughed, made a statement he thought harmless, and it had led him to stand beside one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy in the middle of war. He looked at the city around him, still burning, still trembling, but alive. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the strange thrill of standing on the edge of the impossible. The Queen turned to him once more. Come, we prepare for what comes next. The galaxy may try to destroy you, or it may try to learn from you. Either way, you must endure. The human nodded, gripping his hands tightly. Humans endured. That was all he knew. And now it was all the galaxy would know too. And far above the city, new signals appeared in the sky. Other worlds had noticed the fight. Other races were watching. The human realized that the true challenge, the one that would decide humanity's place in the stars, was only beginning. The city was quiet now, though smoke still drifted from the burned streets. The human walked beside the Queen, surveying the damage. Civilians were being guided to safe zones, their fear slowly replaced with relief. The enemy fleet had retreated, but the human knew they would return. The galaxy had noticed what had happened here, and humans could not hide anymore. The Queen stopped and looked at him. You have done more than survive, she said. You have proven something many in the galaxy refuse to believe, that humans are not weak. They are unpredictable, resilient, and willing to act when others hesitate. The human shook his head. I didn't do it to prove anything. I was just trying to help people survive. And that is exactly why humans are dangerous, she replied. You act without hesitation. You show courage when fear is everywhere. That is more than strength. That is wisdom. He glanced at the city around them. Streets were scarred, buildings damaged, yet life continued. People were emerging from shelters, helping each other. Even the aliens, his companions in this strange world, looked at him with a mix of respect and curiosity. He realized, for the first time, that humans had a way of changing the world simply by existing. The Queen led him to the central plaza. She raised her staff, calling attention to herself. All the citizens and defenders gathered silently. She spoke in her powerful voice, one that resonated in every corner of the city. Today, she said, this human has shown courage, ingenuity, and a spirit that cannot be broken. He has saved our people, our city, and our lives. He has earned not only my respect, but the respect of all who witnessed his actions. The crowd murmured, a mixture of awe and disbelief. Some aliens had never seen a human act with such clarity and chaos. Some could not believe that someone so small could have such impact. The Queen continued, in my culture, the promise of union cannot be undone. He offered it as a joke, yet he has proven his worth beyond any jest. From this day forward, he represents a bond between our worlds, a symbol of alliance, and a living proof that courage is not measured by size or strength. The human felt the weight of her words. His heart raced. The joke that had started this ordeal now meant something far greater. It was no longer just humor, it was history. She turned to him directly. Do you accept this union not as a joke, but as a commitment to continue standing for what is right? The human swallowed. His thoughts ran through every trial, every battle, every life he had saved. He remembered the fear, the chaos, the desperate hope that had carried him this far. And he realized that he could not refuse, not because of duty, but because he understood the meaning of courage in action. "I accept," he said, his voice steady. "I will do everything I can to protect life and stand for what is right." A cheer went up across the plaza, not just from humans, but from aliens who had witnessed his deeds. For the first time, humans were not outsiders. They were not weak. They were part of something larger, something respected. In the days that followed, the human worked with the Queen and her council to rebuild the city and strengthen alliances. He met alien leaders from distant systems who had come to see the outcome of the battle. They observed humans carefully, noting their courage, creativity, and determination. Some were wary. Others were impressed. All understood that the galaxy could no longer dismiss humanity. The Queen and the humans spent time together, planning for the future. She had once been distant and commanding, but now she shared stories of her people, their history, and their fears. He shared Earth's history, its triumphs and failures. They found understanding in honesty and respect in courage. One evening, as the sun, or its alien equivalent, set behind the city towers, the Queen turned to him. "The galaxy will test you again. There will be those who see humans as threats and others who will try to manipulate your kind. You must be ready." The human nodded. "We endure." "That is what humans do," she smiled faintly. "Yes, and that is why I accepted your joke. It was not foolish. It was the first sign that humans are not like others in the galaxy. You think differently, you act differently, and that makes you extraordinary." Months passed. The city rebuilt, stronger and safer than before. Humans were invited into the Galactic Council, not as subordinates but as equal participants. The human watched as leaders from various species debated, sometimes heatedly, sometimes with awe, but always with the acknowledgement that humanity had changed the balance of power. The human reflected on everything that had happened. A joke, a proposal, a trial, a battle. A new place for humans in the galaxy. He had thought he was insignificant, that one small human could never influence the stars. Yet here he stood, beside one of the most powerful beings in the universe, helping to shape history. And then came messages from other worlds. Signals of curiosity, caution, and even fear. Humans were being observed, studied, and for the first time respected. Their reputation spread quickly, carried by both deeds and stories. The human realized that the galaxy now knew something that Earth had always known, but many aliens had ignored. Humans were underestimated at their own risk. The Queen approached him one final time in the plaza. "You have changed not just the perception of your kind, but the course of our world. That is no small feat. You began with a joke, yet your actions have proven your worth beyond words." He smiled faintly. "I never imagined it would lead here. I was only trying to survive and help others survive too." "And that is exactly why humans are remarkable," she said. "You do not need to be the strongest. You simply need to act when others hesitate. That is how you endure. That is how you influence the galaxy." The human looked out over the city. Fires were almost gone, citizens were returning to their homes, and the alien defenders were repairing their defenses. Life continued, scarred but stronger. He felt a strange sense of peace. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had found their place. He thought back to the moment in the royal hall when he had joked about proposing to the Queen. It had seemed foolish then, even impossible. Yet that small act had set in motion events that changed the course of history. It had shown that humor, courage, and honesty, even from the smallest and weakest, could shape worlds. The Queen turned to him once more. "There will be new challenges. Others will come to test you, your people, and your resolve. But remember this: courage, honesty, and persistence are the greatest weapons a human can carry." He nodded. "Then we will endure, and we will act when others hesitate." The sun set behind the towers, casting a golden glow over the city. The human knew that humans would face many trials ahead, but for the first time they were not alone. They had allies. They had respect. And they had proof that being underestimated was humanity's greatest advantage. Far above, other civilizations watched. They saw the courage of a single human, the loyalty of a queen, and the power of action over fear. And the galaxy realized something it had not understood before. Humans may laugh, they may be small, but when it matters, they do not back down. The human turned to the queen. "Thank you," he said simply. "You have earned every bit of respect," she replied. "And perhaps one day you will show others what it truly means to be human." The city stood rebuilt. The stars stretched endlessly above, and humans had finally begun to take their place among them. The joke had changed everything, and it was no longer a joke. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again.